Hey everybody, Josh over here at CFT. We've been asked this for a long time, since pretty much 2016-ish on the 5.0 platform. One of the things all the time was head studs, head studs, head studs. Well, we worked with ARP a long time ago about doing the head studs for these trucks. And the factory bolts are a 1/2 inch thick, hardened, very good bolt. And believe it or not that many in this motor to begin with, which is kind of almost shocking, but they are 1/2 inch and they're a hardened bolt. The next problem with that being also is all the bolts line up right with your dual overhead cam. So when you do a stud and then you do the nut on it with the washer, you always still got a little bit of the stud sticking out. And it became more of a clearance issue for the cam lobes and the cam itself. There is some room there, but there's not a lot of room. So we kind of scrapped the whole entire project. Plus, we never really saw any head gasket failures or any overboosting pressure issues and so forth, especially from all the data. Because your factory turbo system pushes out on average between tuned and factory stocked vehicle, you're looking at everywhere from the range of 30 to 40 PSI with between 45 and 60 PSI of drive pressure that's driving the turbine housing. So you're not really pushing a whole lot. And with this setup, where it said they're 1/2 inch hardened bolts that are inside this to begin with. So never was ever a really boosting issue. Now, when we came out with the rest of our systems with coolant bypass, our charge tubes, and the rest of our up pipes, then we started going into our single turbo applications, like inside this one right here. We played with a bunch of different turbo designs. So we took apart factory turbo after getting all the data, and we fully ripped apart a factory turbo. We've even rebuilt them with different forge mill wheels in them and so forth. The factory turbos, believe it or not, the large compressor turbo is right at almost a 60 millimeter turbo. So when we started doing these projects, we definitely knew that we could do an S300 style, like a 363, which is in this one right here, and we went bigger. So taking drive pressure data and knowing that we are producing 50 to 60 pounds of drive pressure, when we do an actual good divided exhaust housing on like a 0.9 and then do a 363, and we've done a lot of stuff with good stainless diesel. It's helped us in the very beginning of the project, which we wanted a lighter forge mill wheels, and they helped us on the exhaust housing sizes and turbine wheel sizes to actually bring these up to spool them up even faster. So lots of years, lots of testing, lots of going back and forth with multiple different companies helping us out with it, that we finally brought these up to actually work really good, drivable, and so forth. Like we see the big project that Kevin Tetz did. We did a stainless diesel big 369 turbo on there, and we're producing 700 horsepower. And now let's talk about these numbers too. So the factory fuel system, the CP 4.2 that's in these trucks, is actually pretty much almost identical to some of like the Power Stroke ones and everything out there. So they actually fuel a lot more than what these motors are ever rated for. That being said, piezo injectors that are in these are a stick style injector, and you can't just like take the nozzles off on these and change out nozzles like the old days. So it's like we worked with S&S and we got 100% overs made for our compound project. But before we did the 100 overs, we wanted to test out the maximum of the fuel system. We just kept on adding more and more fuel. And we found that the factory fuel system limitation is about 700 horsepower if you can get enough air to go along with it. So you're not going to need any upgraded injectors anytime soon. And that brings us back to the head studs. On our compounded project, Ridiculous, we did a 363 on a 475 stainless diesel turbos. We would get drive pressures between 60 and 80 PSI, and giving us boost pressures all the way up into, we've seen on our logs up to 110, 115 PSI on one of these motors. That factory motor is still in that truck, still on the road with the compound setup today with over 60,000 miles on that setup. We have zero motor issues on it. It is still driving around today. We have zero head gasket issues on it. The only thing we did was blown up the transmission a few times, which brings us to the transmission. What is the limitations of the transmission on one of these trucks? Well, it's the ISN Transits are on these are very close to the same ones that you find on the 1-ton Cummins trucks. The only real difference is the torque converter and the input shaft, but everything else is about the same, which also means you'll never be able to tune one of those transmissions. So if you ever hear you got transmission tuning for an XD platform, they obviously are just trying to sell you something that doesn't exist, and it will probably never exist until you hear of ISN Trans tuning for any of the other Dodges out there or the Rams. So with that being said, you're never going to get trans tuning for these anytime soon. And as far as transmission support, it supports around 700 horsepower is where we found where the torque converter really hated life, and the rest of the transmission did too. And then after one fun night of us doing about a 2-minute long burnout all the way through all the gears to a maximum of like 140 wheel speed, we completely killed that transmission. So of course, with the help of many different people out there, we were able to get parts and get that put back together and slap back in the truck and got it back up and driving again. And from that point on, we just try to keep it detuned until we were trying to hit other new power records on the dyno and on the track. And then we usually go for broke. So if you want to do a single turbo option, we're giving out 4 different versions of the turbo. 2 of them are built by Stainless Diesel, and 2 of them are actually kind of being built through force inductions that are a cheaper version of the 363 and the 366. But it has the same trim wheels and everything else and housings that we want, that we found that works on this platform. From that, our single turbo kit units will come with the new hot side pipe, the pedestal base. There's a fuel, or not fuel, but oil fitting that you'll put in, and an oil feed line. In the backside is the factory oil drain plug back down here. That will have a plug and a cover that will go on it, just like our other solutions kit, how it has a coolant plug up front and a cap. You'll get something similar to that. You'll get a new split bridge that goes into a T4. That'll be all built and designed for this. You'll get the new hot side pipe that'll come off and go down to your intercooler. And then you'll get a new stainless down pipe that's 3-inch and goes into 4-inch with a factory style flange to hook up to your factory style exhaust. That pretty much sums up the kit for the single turbo kit. And that's pretty much a lot of information about this platform of what it can handle and why we don't really see any other parts out there. We worked with other companies like Fluid Dampener, ARP like I said, S&S, and we found it's like nobody out there is really trying to run past 700 horsepower in one of these. And now that we're available to bring these single turbo kits at a cheaper price now, instead of bringing them into our shop, fabbing everything, installing everything, we're making it where we revamped the whole design, made it more compact, way better, and working with great turbo builders and so forth, we're able to bring you in a nice shippable kit that will build to this beautiful motor that's on display, and we know everything will fit up and work, and we'll align everything for you. So as soon as you get it in the package, you just remove your factory units, drop this in, and you're done and taken care of. Anything else on this? Hit us in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Always send us an email if you got questions. cftperformance.com is where you can find all the products.